You're doing everything right. You have a good job, you're paying your bills on time, and you've even started investing. So why does it still feel like you're just running in place? The truth is, the middle class isn't being destroyed by one big financial disaster. It's being drained by 7 silent traps that are designed to look like normal adult life. They are so quiet. You probably don't even know they're happening until your bank account hits a ceiling you can't break. In this video, I'm exposing the psychological and structural traps that keep high earners broke. And pay close attention to number 4. It's the exact reason why making more money hasn't actually made your life any easier. Let's stop the leak. Trap number 1, the upgrade illusion. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the US experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because what we're going to cover today is not about stock picks or get-rich-quick blueprints. It's about the invisible architecture of financial stress, the stuff nobody talks about because it looks, on the surface, completely ordinary. So, trap number 1, the upgrade illusion. Here's how it usually plays out. Someone's been grinding at $55,000 a year, living in a decent apartment, driving a used car that runs fine. Then the promotion comes. Now they're at $72,000. And almost immediately, quietly, almost without thinking, the decisions start shifting. A slightly nicer apartment because, hey, the commute is easier. A lease on a newer car because, honestly, the old one needed work anyway. Dinner's out a little more often because they earned it. None of these things feel like traps. They feel like rewards. They feel like the natural progression of doing well. And that's exactly what makes this the first silent trap. Economists call it lifestyle inflation. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. But whatever you call it, the outcome is the same. The raise disappears before it ever has a chance to build anything. According to a 2023 survey from Bankrate, nearly 57% of Americans say they couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense from savings alone. And a huge portion of those people are not low earners. Many of them are making $70,000, $80,000, even 6 figures. The income went up. The financial anxiety didn't. Here's the thing about the upgrade illusion. It doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. The brain experiences an increase in income as permission. Permission to finally live the life that feels appropriate for where you are. The problem is, appropriate is a moving target, and it always trends upward. The practical move here is something called a savings intercept. Before the upgraded lifestyle has a chance to absorb the raise, automate a fixed percentage, ideally 20 to 30%, directly into a separate account the day the new paycheck hits. Not after expenses. Before. Because if the money never lands in the checking account, the brain never counts it as available to spend. This is not about deprivation. It's about designing the system so the upgrade illusion doesn't get to run the show. Trap number 2, the safety spending spiral. This one is particularly common in the United States, and it's deeply connected to something that doesn't get talked about enough in personal finance conversations: the emotional weight of living in a country without a reliable safety net. Here's what most people don't realize. A significant portion of middle-class spending in America isn't about luxury. It's about protection. It's about trying to buy certainty in a system that doesn't provide it automatically. And because healthcare, childcare, retirement, and housing security are not guaranteed, the way they might be in other developed countries, the psychological response is to spend towards safety, to overinsure, to overprepare, to buy the extended warranty, the premium health plan, the slightly bigger home in the slightly better school district, just in case. The American Psychological Association reported in its annual Stress in America survey that money consistently ranks as the #1 source of stress for U.S. adults. And the interesting thing is that stress level doesn't drop proportionally as income rises. Why? Because the threats feel real regardless of income level. A $90,000 a year earner who has seen a family member wiped out by a medical bill isn't being irrational when they feel anxious. The anxiety is a rational response to genuine systemic risk. But here's where it becomes a trap. Safety spending, when driven by anxiety rather than strategy, tends to be inefficient. It's the person who pays $400 a month for a comprehensive health plan they rarely use, but never maxes out their HSA, because they didn't know that was an option. It's the person stockpiling a $20,000 emergency fund in a regular savings account earning 0.4%, while inflation quietly erodes its real value. The feeling of safety and the financial mechanics of safety are two very different things. Now you might be thinking, so I'm supposed to just feel unsafe? That doesn't help. No. The goal is to shift from reactive safety spending to intentional security building. That means a high-yield savings account for your emergency fund instead of a standard one. Right now, some are offering between 4.5 and 5%. It means actually understanding what your health insurance covers versus what you're overpaying to cover emotionally. Small distinctions, but over a decade, they compound dramatically. Trap number 3, the debt identity loop. Most conversations about debt focus on interest rates and payoff strategies. And those things matter. But there's a layer underneath that almost never gets discussed, which is the identity people build around being in debt. Here's the thing. When someone has been carrying a car payment, student loans, and a credit card balance for long enough, those payments become part of how they budget, how they think, and subconsciously, how they define their life. The monthly minimum becomes the normal. And normal, in the human brain, is comfortable, familiar, safe, even when it's harmful. The Federal Reserve reported that in 2023, total U.S. household debt reached a record $17.5 trillion. Credit card balances alone surpassed $1.1 trillion for the first time in history. These are not numbers about irresponsible people. They are numbers about people who got into a system and stayed in it partly because the system was designed to keep them there, and partly because the human brain adapts to patterns, even damaging ones. This is where it gets interesting. Research in behavioral economics shows that people systematically underestimate how much they'll save once a debt is gone. The monthly payment for a car loan ends, and instead of redirecting that $450 towards something else, most people absorb it back into lifestyle. Because the routine of that money is already spoken for runs so deep that freedom, when it finally arrives, gets filled with something new. The practical solution here is what some financial planners call payment redirection commitment, setting it up in advance. Before the last car payment hits, decide where that $450 goes next. Automate it immediately. Don't let the gap exist, because the gap is where the spending drift happens. Trap number 4. And this is the one. The income to stress paradox. This is the exact reason why making more money hasn't made life easier. And it deserves more than a surface-level explanation. There's a well-known study from Princeton, led by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, that found emotional well-being plateaus around $75,000 in annual income. Updated research from Matthew Killingsworth in 2021 revised that upward, suggesting happiness continues to rise with income further than originally thought. But the key finding remained. Beyond a certain threshold, money stops buying peace of mind in proportion to how much more of it you earn. Why does this happen in the US specifically? Because the middle-class financial structure in America is built on a foundation of visible costs and invisible ceilings. Take someone earning $85,000 a year in a mid-size American city. Before they see $1 of discretionary income, here's what's already gone. Federal and state taxes take roughly 25 to 28%. Rent or mortgage payments average $1,800 to $2,400 depending on the market. A car, because public transit is limited in most of this country, is another $400 to $600 including insurance. Groceries for a household have increased dramatically, averaging over $400 per month according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Healthcare premiums, even with employer contribution, can run $300 to $500 per month out of pocket. Do the math on that and you're already past $3,500 a month before student loans, before subscriptions, before anything that feels like a choice. Here's the thing that creates the paradox. As income goes up, the reference point shifts. At $55,000, the goal was $75,000. At $75,000, the goal becomes $100,000. And at $100,000, the anxiety doesn't disappear. It just attaches to a new number. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and it is the engine underneath most middle-class financial dissatisfaction. The income rises. The threshold of enough rises with it. And the emotional experience stays roughly the same. The way out isn't earning more. It's deliberately anchoring what enough looks like before the next raise hits. Writing it down, defining it concretely, not as a ceiling on ambition, but as a floor for contentment. Because without that anchor, the treadmill just keeps running. Trap number 5, the comparison economy. Social media did not create financial comparison, but it absolutely turbocharged it. Human beings have always compared their financial situation to those around them. It's a deeply wired behavior. Evolutionary psychologists argue it helped early humans gauge social standing and resource access. But for most of history, the comparison pool was limited to what people could actually see: neighbors, co-workers, family. The reference group was local, manageable. Now, the reference group is global, curated, and monetized. Research from the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that social media use is directly linked to increased feelings of envy and financial dissatisfaction, even among people who are objectively doing well. When someone scrolls through content showing European vacations, kitchen renovations, and new cars, the brain doesn't automatically process that as a highlight reel. It processes it as evidence of where life should be. And this creates a spending pattern that economists call social comparison expenditure. Spending not for utility or genuine enjoyment, but to signal status, keep up, or relieve the discomfort of feeling behind. Here's what makes this particularly dangerous in the US. American culture has a uniquely strong relationship between self-worth and financial status. Unlike some other cultures where frugality is respected, in the American cultural narrative, visible consumption is often treated as evidence of success, which means opting out of the comparison economy doesn't just feel financially disciplined, it can feel socially threatening. Like falling behind in a race everyone else seems to be winning. The action step here is a consumption audit, not of purchases, but of inputs. Which accounts, which platforms, which group chats consistently leave you feeling like you're not doing enough? Because financial behavior follows emotional state. If the content you consume is constantly generating financial anxiety, the spending that follows will reflect that anxiety. Curating your information environment is a legitimate financial strategy. Trap number 6, the retirement delay effect. The US retirement system is, by design, a self-directed system. There's no employer pension waiting for most workers. There's a 401k, an IRA, and the personal responsibility to figure out how to use them effectively. And for a lot of people, that responsibility gets deferred. Not because they're lazy, because it feels abstract. Because retirement, when you're 32 or 38, feels genuinely far away. And because the immediate costs of life, rent, childcare, the car that needs fixing, are loud and concrete while the future is quiet and theoretical. But here's the math that makes this trap devastating. The difference between starting retirement contributions at 25 versus 35 is not 10 years of savings. Because of compound interest, it can be more than double the final balance. A person contributing $400 a month starting at 25, assuming a 7% average annual return, would have roughly $1.1 million by 65. The same person starting at 35? Around $490,000. Same contribution, same return. A gap of over $600,000 from a 10-year delay. The trap isn't that people don't know this. Most have heard some version of it. The trap is that the psychological weight of current financial stress consistently wins against the mathematical argument for future savings. When choosing between contributing to a 401k or covering this month's car repair, the present wins. Every time. The way to break this loop isn't willpower. It's removing the decision from the equation. Automatic contribution at even 3 or 4%, increasing by 1% each year, creates a system that builds momentum without relying on monthly motivation. Small, automatic, consistent. That's the compound interest of financial behavior. Trap number 7. The final one. The someday budget. This is the quietest trap of all. And in some ways, it's the most damaging because it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like optimism. The someday budget goes like this. Someday, when things settle down, I'll get serious about saving. Someday, when the kids are older, we'll cut back on expenses. Someday, when I get the next raise, I'll start putting real money away. Someday is doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting in most people's financial lives, and it never actually arrives. Research in behavioral economics identifies this as present bias. the consistent human tendency to overvalue immediate comfort and undervalue future consequences. It's not a character flaw. It's a feature of how the brain processes time. But understanding it doesn't make it harmless. Because every someday that passes is a compounding opportunity that doesn't come back. Here's what most people don't realize about the someday budget. It almost always coexists with income growth. People aren't waiting until things get better because things are objectively terrible. They're waiting because there's always one more thing, one more expense, one more life transition, one more reason why right now isn't quite the right time. The fix for the someday budget is ruthlessly unglamorous, a financial date. Once a month, 1 hour, the same time, to review 3 things: what came in, what went out, and what moved toward the future. That's it. Not a full overhaul. Not a complex spreadsheet. Just regularity. Because the brain treats financial awareness the same way it treats exercise. Consistency matters more than intensity. Now look, here's where all 7 traps connect. The upgrade illusion, the safety spending spiral, the debt identity loop, the income to stress paradox, the comparison economy, the retirement delay effect, and the someday budget. They are not separate problems. They are 7 expressions of the same underlying dynamic. A financial system in the United States that is structurally complex, emotionally loaded, and almost entirely self-managed. And a cultural narrative that simultaneously pressures people to consume, compare, and keep up, while also telling them that financial struggle is a personal failure. It isn't a personal failure. It's a predictable response to a genuinely difficult environment. But here's the calm, honest truth. Awareness of the trap is the first mechanical step out of it. Not the final step. Not a solution by itself, but the beginning of a different kind of financial behavior, one driven by intentionality rather than reaction. And that distinction is worth more than any individual financial tactic. If this video helped you see your own financial patterns a little more clearly, that's enough for today. That's actually a lot. Hit subscribe if you want more of this kind of honest, psychology-first conversation about money. No flexing, no unrealistic advice. Just real talk about how people in this country actually experience financial life. The next video goes even deeper. I'll see you there.